We're going to talk about Aion 2, the good, the bad, and the inevitable pay-to-win conversation. Before we jump in though, there are a couple of caveats. First, the game isn't out, so we haven't played it. We don't fully understand every system. Secondly, a lot of the information is obviously in Korean and it's been translated, so a bit of misinformation here or there might have occurred just simply because of translation. And third, I personally haven't played Aion 1, so some of the systems and nuances might be a little bit lost to me. So let's begin, shall we? Now, if you don't know what Aion 2 is, it's going to be an MMORPG being made by NC Soft. The game is going to release in Korea in November this year, with a global release coming at some point in 2026. There's some debate as to when that will be. There's like an unofficial idea that it'll be in around about summer, but at this point nobody really knows. Obviously, it is somewhat of a sequel to Aion 1, but it's not like you have to have played Aion 1 to have played Aion 2, right? It's not that kind of vibe. The game is being made on Unreal Engine 5, and that leads on to one of the potential positives here. The actual game world to me is looking very beautiful. The graphics are pretty nice. The vistas, if you will, are pretty stunning. And I think a lot of people will say that the graphics are going to be like top tier. Now, it is on Unreal Engine 5, so I don't know how the performance will be, but the devs, whenever they play, they're like, we're rocking on mid-tier hardware and it seems to be running pretty damn nicely. For me, even though the graphics are looking pretty decent, it's not really a deal breaker for myself. As long as the graphics are kind of like hitting this minimum bar and I enjoy the aesthetic of it, then, you know, I'm somewhat interested. Aion 2 is definitely hitting that level, for sure. I would expect the performance and the graphics to be maybe on par, if not better than Throne of Liberty. However, we're talking about the good and the bad, and some of the bad for me is that the world kind of feels a little bit disjointed. Well, actually, it's not the world itself that feels disjointed, it's actually more that the characters to me don't seem like that they're going to blend in with the world, and it's a little bit jarring. In the recent live stream that they had characters riding around on unicycles. They had several characters in funky outfits, one of them being like a schoolgirl outfit with like shrimp daggers. Whilst there will be some realistic looking skins, if you're looking for immersion, I don't think this game is going to be for you because there'll be some characters that are just going to look like absolute clowns. Combine that with the fact that the actual character's movement is not looking particularly great because I don't know, for some reason it doesn't seem to like they're walking in the world. It definitely gives me a feeling that the world and the character are completely separate, which of course they are, but what I mean is they don't look like they blend together. And if you're somebody after immersion, then I would suspect that Aion 2 might not necessarily be for you. For me, I don't really care about immersion that much. If the content's good, that's good with me. And let's speak about the content. The recent live stream wasn't about this, but the one before was about the content offerings. And the content offerings are sounding very, very nice indeed and very deep. There's of course going to be a leveling process, which the world is actually going to scale up with you as far as we know. So that means all of the content will be relevant. But there's going to be instance-based dungeons, PvP like arenas and battlegrounds, PvP open world zone known as Abyss, the single player like dungeons and stuff like that. I mean, I can't even remember them off the top of my head as I'm recording this because there's actually just so much content that the game is going to offer. It's kind of wild. The game is leaning, I think, more towards the PvE side of things rather than the PvP, but there's definitely both included, and I think both parties might be satisfied. If you're a hardcore PvP Andy from like Arcade or even maybe Aion, I think this game is moving very much more towards the PvE, but there appears to be that there's going to be content for everybody. And I mentioned that the characters are looking a little bit like clownish, like some of them are, you know, shrimp daggers and stuff like that. The alternative side of that, I guess, is that your character will have deep customization and you'll be able to make your character look pretty much exactly how you want it to. But that's kind of the problem, right? If you want to look like somebody who doesn't fit into the world and somebody wants to play a game where the characters look like they fit into the world, that's kind of a little bit of a mismatch there. But the character creator is looking very, very deep. Big boob slider if that's something you want as well. It's almost standard in Unreal Engine 5 to have this level of customization, but you can't argue with it. It does look pretty damn nice in Aion 2. I will say we've just done the good. Let's move on to a little bit of the bad. The counter yet again to that though is that some of this game is probably going to be a little bit Kuma bait. Now for some of you that'll be an absolute positive, but for some people it can be a little bit disturbing to see maybe everything so overtly sexualized at times. Now that's not to say that everybody who plays the game will be making like very sexual characters. Obviously that's not the case, but there's been a couple of instances now where definitely feels a little bit like Kuma bait. When they did the character creator, they actually had the boob slider and they were like chuckling along, like increasing the boobs, which is fine, right? In its own, not really an issue. And in the recent live stream, there was like a school uniform with a very short skirt, which, let's be honest, the devs themselves have decided to have those characters. Now, I think they can get away with it here because they're like, it's more like Wednesday Addams, and the characters sort of look like Wednesday Addams, and they've got the new TV show out. But I definitely think this game is going to be a little bit of Kuma bait. For some people, that's a negative. For other people, it's a joyful plus. One thing that I think is potentially looking decent, but it's actually the deal breaker for me if it's not good, but we're not going to know until we actually get our hands on it, is the combat. Now, the combat seems to have two different modes. They've got like this action combat mode where there is no mouse cursor, you're not like clicking and stuff like that. And then there's another mode where you actually can kind of like tab and select a character and not look at the character and still do damage, which is more like tab target. Apart from the fact, I can't work out if it has a cursor or not. They talk about how it's like an Aion 2 action mode and then like a traditional Aion mode. I simply don't know how that's going to work. For me, it's very simple. If you give me tab target and you give me like a hybrid mode, a lot of the times I'm just going to play the tab target mode because it's more effective and more efficient. Doesn't matter how fun the other mode is, we're just going to go with the most effective. I know some people will be like, Jay, that's your own fault, but I know a lot of people will think the same as me. I kind of need to be forced to play an inefficient, more fun mode than give me the option of playing a more efficient, less fun mode. I don't know if that'll apply to this game, because actually it's sort of hard to work out exactly how it's going to work right now. But conceptually, it looks sort of more action-based. There's dodging and stuff like that. And a lot of the people from the tests are reporting that it's actually enjoyable. So we'll hope here that the combat is good. For me, the combat is actually the deal breaker whether or not I will play the game. I mean, we'll give it a try, but whether or not I will stay playing the game. If the combat feels bad, I will be completely out of it. Now, I know a lot of people probably enjoyed Throne of Liberty, but the main reason that I couldn't play Throne of Liberty is because I did not enjoy the combat. However, some of the things that were in Throne of Liberty don't appear to be in Aion 2. I won't bore you with the details, but in Aion 2, it doesn't look like when you're attacking a character that when you try and run away that you still look at the character, and it doesn't look like you get slowed down very much. There are still things that I don't like instant snapping and stuff like that, but really, right now, it's too hard to determine. I think the combat will be very decent for people who enjoy tab target. For people more like myself who leans more towards the action combat, it's a maybe right now. We'll have to wait and see. Another good thing is that there's not going to be any auto playing. It looks like there's auto running between like quest locations. Well, I'm not personally too hung up on that, but there is no autoplay or anything like that. They were initially talking about having that for the mobile version of the game, but it seems like they've decided to remove that and everything is manual. The negative, I guess, for a lot of people will be the very simple fact that this game has a pure mobile client. Now, inherently, I'm not that bothered about a game having a mobile version and a PC version, as long as the PC version doesn't feel like mobile, doesn't feel like it's been hindered by mobile, and the game feels completely normal on PC. That's another thing that we're not going to really know until we get our hands on it. However, I would say that some of the feedback from the Korean tests seemed to say that the game looked mobile-y and played a little bit like mobile. And I think in their recent dev stream, they actually spoke about this. They said that originally it was designed so that it was like focused on mobile, and then they were going to make it so that the PC controls would be decent, but they found that that wasn't working, so now they're concentrating on making good PC controls. Honestly, I don't mind them saying that as long as they end up with a good product at the end of it, and there's no way that we can know that right now. Now, for some of you, you'll just be saying, mobile, I'm not playing that mobile trash. That's completely fine, and nothing I'm going to say or do is going to change your mind there. For me, it's not that important. For you, it might be, and I don't mean to diminish your thoughts. And then there's two major negative points in my opinion. Yes, we're definitely coming to the pay-to-win conversation, but before that, I just want to talk about the release schedule. Yes, it's coming out in November in Korea, but for the rest of the world, it's going to be many months beyond that. And quite frankly, that means that the game will be solved by a lot of people on YouTube and a lot of people who've played the Korean version. It means that when you come to the Western version, you might feel a little bit behind. For some people, that's a deal breaker, but it's obviously not a deal breaker for everybody, because when Throne of Liberty had 300,000 people playing it, most of them wouldn't have played the Korean version. So it's a consideration that it'll be a very solved MMO. For some of you, that might be something you really, really don't like. For other people, maybe you're just not bothered. I think a lot of people aren't bothered, but some people are definitely going to care. And then let's come to the pay to win. I don't think anybody's really going to dispute the idea that this game is going to be pay to win. The level of pay to win at the minute is slightly up for debate because we've not played the game, we've not tried the systems. For example, in a game like New World, if you did conceptually sell gold, it would be incredibly pay to win. But in World of Warcraft, they sell gold, and whilst I would still argue that it is pay to win, let's not have that conversation here right now, I would say that it's slightly less pay to win by the fact that most of the gear that's good actually comes from content. It depends on the systems, and the systems are nuanced. However, the game is going to have pay to win. So we need to talk about the monetization first and foremost. The game is going to be free to play, and it's going to have all the classic things, right? There's going to be a battle pass. Battle pass is typically a slightly pay to win. Like, you pay for them, you get an advantage in game. If you don't pay for it, you don't. Slightly pay to win. There's also going to be an optional subscription, which they say is mostly convenience. Convenience in my eyes is just pay to win. It's just slightly mild pay to win. But the stuff like extra gear space or whatever, I suspect that stuff will be in there. I don't know the exact details of that exactly, so don't quote me on it. Them two alone, I think for a lot of people will be like, oh, that's pretty pay to win. But for other people, it's kind of like cap pay to win and would be fine. You can also buy cosmetics and that would be all right. However, there's a few more things that add on to it that make it potentially a lot more pay to win. And the first one, I've got to say, I don't really like the way that NCSoft has dealt with this. I feel like they've been disingenuous, and I feel like that they've said certain things at Gamescom that aren't necessarily materializing right here and right now. NCSoft at Gamescom was like, hey, some of this is a bit of a misconception that our games are pay to win. And it's like, no, your games just straight up are pay to win. What are you talking about? And then secondly, they did like this fact check at the start of the stream this time around. And one of it was like, hey, is the auction house only in-game currency and not premium? And they said, yes, it's only in-game currency and not premium, which is correct, right? That's factually appears to be true, but it's kind of on a technicality. Like, if somebody asked me, is World of Warcraft auction house a premium currency? And I just say, no, it's only gold. It's correct, it's right, functionally correct. Everything that I just said would hold up in a court of law, but it would be disingenuous if I then didn't say that you can actually buy the gold. And they did the same thing here. At the start of the stream, they said it's only in-game gold, but then it turns out that when they were talking about this transfer, because you can actually, transfer your gold into the premium currency to buy the skins and stuff like that. Yeah, well, that's actually a player-to-player trade, which means if you've bought the premium currency, you can trade it in for the gold and then use that on the auction house. Yes, the auction house is going to use gold only, which means you're not excluded if you don't buy the premium currency. But for us, that sounds pretty pay to win. Again, though, that'll depend. Is it like potentially what it would be for World of Warcraft, or is it worse than that or better than that? We don't truly know. I don't like how they dealt with that, though, to be honest. And then there's two other elements of the actual gameplay that imply that the game will be an extra layer of pay to win beyond that. First, it sounds like you're going to be able to buy dungeon loot tickets. Now, I think it's specifically the loot. I think you can actually run the dungeon, although I'm not 100% sure about these systems. Again, some of this is Korean and I don't speak Korean. But basically, at the end of a dungeon, there's going to be certain types of gear that you can drop. Some bind on pickup, some bind on equip. There's stuff that you'll get directly from the boss, which will be bind on equip and you can sell in the auction house. But then there's these like extra loot tickets I think you can buy, which I think you'll get some in-game, but you can also buy extra ones, which I heard the number of 3, but I don't know about that. But it sounds like you can basically buy extra loot rolls from dungeons. Pretty obviously pay to win. I don't think anybody's going to deny that. And then there's the second element here, which is actually PvP. A lot of the best PvP gear is actually going to come from doing the Abyss content, which is sort of like the faction v faction warfare. Some Aion people are upset that the factions are looking very similar. I can't speak about that. I don't really know about that. But the Abyss area is going to be where you get PvP gear. I would still argue that at the start of the game, you're going to be able to buy gear from the auction house, which will let you perform better in the Abyss area before you get the PvP gear. It'll kind of give you a kickstart because you'll be ahead of everybody and be able to kill people rather than it just being purely from PvP. But that sounds alright, right? For a lot of people, myself included, if a game is not really pay to win for PvP and it's only PvE, I'm less bothered by that. Doesn't make it not pay to win, doesn't make it not relevant to some people, but for me, if the PvP itself is not really pay to win, I'm on board with that, basically, okay? However, with this Abyss area, the Abyss area is going to be timed, so there's only like 7 hours that you can do per week. It sounds like there might be ways of extending it within the game itself, but I've also heard, although I didn't actually find the exact direct translation here, but it sounds like you're going to be able to buy extra time in the Abyss area, which then will give you an advantage when you're buying the PvP gear with the in-game currency that you get from the Abyss runs. So that just seems to add on an extra layer of pay to win that this game might have. When it comes to pay to win, for me, it's very simple. The game is going to be pay to win, and I think it's probably going to be very pay to win. However, we can't really make the final judgment until the end. But you look at NCSoft's track record, it's going to be that kind of vibe. Probably around the same level as Throne of Liberty, because that's what they said themselves. In like an investor call, I think NCSoft said it would be similar to Throne of Liberty, and you know what, it looks like that. Maybe even on some levels worse, maybe better, depends on how the systems are implemented. For me personally, it all comes down to the combat. If I like the combat, I can probably play the game. It was the main deal breaker when it came to Throne of Liberty. I don't actually really mind that much if it's pay to win. Well, that's not true. I do mind if it's pay to win. I strongly dislike pay to win, but it's just one element of the entire game. I can probably live with it. For some people though, the pay to win will be an absolute deal breaker, and that's fair enough. So will be the mobile, for example. For some people, it'll be mobile deal breaker. That's fine. I'm not in that camp just yet. I need to play it. I need to try it. There doesn't sound like there's going to be a beta, so we're going to have to judge it on the Korean version and then wait till it releases in the West. The Korean version, I'm pretty sure it's the 19th of November. I didn't say that at the start, but you know, that's when it's coming out. But yeah, I need to play it. I don't like pay to win, but I will still play a pay to win game. People find that like really contradictory. I just don't. There's a lot of things that I don't like that I still might suffer through if the rest of it is good. Not everything in life is like, oh, there's a slight negative, then I'm definitely not going to touch it. I only play it if it's 100% positives. Pay to win for me is just a strong negative. It could get outweighed by good combat and good content, for example. Aion 2 could have. I'm very dubious about Aion 2. I'm very skeptical by the way that NCSoft is treating it. I think they've been a little bit disingenuous at times as well. But let's just say something that I want to go unsaid going forward. I want MMOs to succeed. I want every MMO to be good and for it to have an audience. The only possible way that that wouldn't be true is if I really, really loved a game and I felt like an inferior game was overtaking my game. But that's not happened yet, and I doubt it's going to happen. But in general, I think I would prefer that MMOs as a whole are successful. I would prefer they don't have pay to win in them, but I want the players to get the game that they want. So let's hope it's good. Let's hope we enjoy it. The reality is, I can't really know it until we try it. Let me know your thoughts. Are you looking forward to Aion 2? I'm still very much on the fence. I know there's a lot of like Aion 1 copers who are like, oh, it's going to be amazing, it's going to be fantastic. Kind of feel like that they don't realize that for a lot of people it's going to be like, it's mobile, it's pay to win, Korean slop. And really, I think I'm not on either spectrum. I'm not really a coper, I'm not really a doomer. I kind of want to play it, I kind of want to see it. I didn't like the last live stream. There was some things in it that I thought looked bad, but let's hope the game's good. What you should definitely do right now though is have a beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.